All right, brother. Thank you. Honor and privilege, mate. Sitting down with basically you've got a role that I've always admired and always wanted to get into and always love talking shop with someone who works with youth athletes, in the S&C realm and trying to develop them as people as well as athletes as well, right? So, mate, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity and a little bit of slice of the time.
No, mate, I appreciate it. And flowers to you, mate. Nearly 400 episodes. That's not easy to do.
You are the 400th, brother.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Where's the celebration?
Oh, we can start celebrating, mate. Like,
Make
fuck.
some noises. Hang on, I've got a button over here.
Have you really?
Oh, that's the wrong one. No. Ah, there we go. Fifth time's a charm.
Hey, it's all good, man. It's all good. Like we'll crack out the whiskey sometime, mate. I keep needing to get over to Sydney, man. I got a good load of peeps out there. Seems like everyone I talk to in Australia is in and around Sydney, man. So I'm like, fuck, I gotta come out.
Mate, it is a bit of a epicenter for sport in Australia. Obviously, probably Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah.
Sydney for your rugby league, soccer at an NPL and an A League level. So rugby union and especially the women's sport scene as well. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, it's a great area to be in. Plenty of happening around it, not only in the athlete space but with the coaches as well.
Mm.
Typically when guests or guest speakers or presenters come to Australia, Sydney's usually the number one on their agenda. So it's pretty special to be able to. I've been here for 2 years now, and just the amount of people and networks have sort of been established over that 2 years. Yeah, it's pretty special. It's a good little place to be in.
That's epic, man. Like kind of rubbing shoulders with folk around the world. Just seeing what they do on the other side of the pond and like how do you help folk over there with the differences of abilities, dynamics, socioeconomic, whatever the fuck it is, right? It's like, okay, cool. How do you do it over there? Sweet. How can we apply it here? Cool. How do we do it here and then apply it over there? And I think that's the beauty of the fitness industry, right? Like just this weird melting pot of like theoretical and practical. We need the folks who are always in the lab, which is definitely not my role. I'm dyslexic as a motherfucker, mate. I read through my CV the other day. I think it was like a couple of days ago, and it is spelt to shit wrong. I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. No wonder, But anyway, we need those folk in the lab, and then we also need the folk on the ground, and we need to be able to relay back and refer on and talk to one another and be like, hey guys, like, in the textbook this worked, didn't quite work out in the field. If in fact if worked in the field and we don't really know how, they're like, cool, we'll go figure that out, and it's just this weird melting pot. And I think it's just exacerbated through different nations. I'm fascinated in this shit, man. Like obviously coming from UK, and then spent best part of 4 years in New Zealand. Got a big admiration for the States, got a big admiration for Australia of just like the academy level. Strength and conditioning is actually considered a job rather than a hobby, right? Like coming out of the UK, it's like, oh, you teach adult PE. And I'm like, well, I can't disagree with you because technically yes, but also it's a little bit more than that. So dude, it's cool. It's cool as fuck.
But I couldn't agree more. And exactly what you said there before, different people will have different strengths. And it's just really about creating for yourself or your company or whoever you're involved with a network of people that you can rely on at certain points in time. Because the system or the environment you're in now versus 2 years time versus 2 years before is always continually changing. And to be able to have those people in your network where you can just send them a message, send them an email to say, look, I'm facing this problem here. Because people don't expect you to have all the answers. But if you can find the answers for them, that's probably more appreciated than making something up on the spot or I'll get back to you. So yeah, networks is honestly your net worth. I believe that through and through. So couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I agree, man. How did you get into the role that you're in? How did you get onto this journey, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with the first part of the question. So I've been here at Athletes Authority now for 2 years. So it's absolutely flown by. The way it popped up is pretty funny actually, and it's sort of one of those things that big believer in things happen for a reason. So I was with a partner at the time. We went our separate ways, and I was working with Carl, who's one of the co-owners here, for about a year and a half to 2 years myself with my own business back home in the Sunshine Coast. And we had our weekly mentorship call where we run through the basics that we do every week. And at the end, I said, mate, can I quickly call you after? And he goes, of course. So we called him. I said, mate, look, this is what's just happened. Look, I know it's a long shot, but if hypothetically a role was available, would you be open to potentially offering it? And he said, look, I've got to speak to my business partner, Lockie. I'll get back to you within the day. I was like, cool. We'll see how we go. You got to shoot your shot. And about 5 minutes later, he called me back and he said, when can you come down here? Wow. So I was like, no worries. I'll book my ticket. So that was on maybe, I think, the Wednesday or the Thursday. The Saturday, I flew down, which wasn't easy. I booked the wrong day. So I bombed that. So I had to buy another flight. But yeah, came down to Sydney, spent some time here for 2 to 3 days. Got around the team. Fantastic operation. Obviously followed from afar for a very long time. So it was great to be within the four walls as such. And they just moved to their new location, which we're in now. And yeah, mate, I jumped at it, went home, packed up my business pretty quickly in about a week and a half, got in my car in my ute and drove down. And that's pretty much how that happened there. So big believer in, at that point in time in my life, it was a great chance to be able to pack everything up and be able to move and relocate pretty quickly. Now, obviously it had its challenges and things like that, but when things like that get presented to you, you really have one or two options. You can look back at it and go, geez, I wish I had done that. Or you can just go head first and see where it takes you. And yeah, it's taken me to where we are right now.
100%, mate. You really do come to a T-junction, right? And you can go left and the normal route, and I'm going to do everything that I usually do things the way I've always done it, right? And you're like, yeah, sound. Nothing's never going to change, pal. And that's okay for some people. That's what they want to do, and that's sound. But you really approach this. Oh, fuck, I got one or two options. I got a yes or a no here. And sometimes you just got to jump, man. Like I'm a huge believer in it myself. Of just get yourself out there. Like you're either going to sink or swim. If you're going to fuck something, you might as well fuck the shit out of it. And
100%. And for me personally, I'd been in the same environment, being the Sunshine Coast where I grew up, majority of my life. So to go to the big city like Sydney, people always say, was it daunting? Was it this? Was it that? To be fair, I genuinely didn't think about it. I sort of had one little idea in my mind, which was come down here and see where it takes me. Didn't really think about everything else on the side. Now, whether that's just naivete, probably, or that tunnel vision approach, probably as well. It's probably a combination of the two and a bunch of other things as well. But yeah, you really do have to take those chances, and you never know where they lead to. Massive believer in that.
Yeah, I think you got to do it, man, because at the end of the day, you can always just go back home. You always got that option. You're like, well, whatever. I just turn the car back around and drive back home, and you've just spent like $100 in petrol, whatever. It's you gave it a shot, man.
These days,
well,
bit more than 100 these days, but no, exactly right, and that's it. And I think there is, especially, I wouldn't even say in our industry, in general, there is a massive fear of doing something and then that not working out, when it should be the complete opposite. You mentioned your CV there before. I know people, if they've got contracts or only been in places for 1 year, there's this stigmatism around that, they must have been good for the job or the environment wasn't for them. I look at it the complete other way. That they've realized that, okay, that wasn't for me, so I'm going to go on to the next one. I'm going to try something else. I'd rather see someone have 5 or 6 different 1 year, couple of month contracts on their CV than someone who's been in the one place the whole time. You've got 5 or 6 different experiences versus the one experience. Neither are right, but they both bring their own unique pros and cons to it. And if we can just break some of that, I guess, external judgment or even internal judgment down to the fact that experiences are what you make of them. And yeah, I'm a big believer in multiple experiences to sort of get to where you want to go versus the one way, because you do become quite siloed in your thought process or the way that you create your systems or whatever it may be. So all these different external influences from multiple roles or multiple positions can really be advantageous versus the other way around.
I fucking love you for saying that, because I couldn't agree more with that. I think it's the big C, and I'm not talking about the word cunt. I'm talking about complacency. It's people just sit in that one spot and be like, I know everything that there is to know. I say, yes, about that piddly ass pond that you keep swimming around in, like not the big bad world. There is a lot of things out there, and we're in a beautiful industry because I genuinely believe we learn more from the people that we coach than any course that we could ever do. Don't get me wrong. I think there's time and a place for courses. Obviously, you need prerequisites. We need to know something to say, right? Okay, fine. We've got that ticked off. But the individuals in front of us, we learn way more from them than any piece of paper, any online course, anything else, including the coaches, right? We can learn from each other just from the people that we're interacting with. And if you've had the absolute privilege of coaching in different places under, different philosophies in different sectors, maybe you did CrossFit, maybe you went youth S&C, maybe you went high school PE, maybe you did fucking NFL, something, whatever, different countries around, you've had the experience of so many different people, right? And you just top them up over the years, and you've seen tens of thousands of people. You've had the ability and the opportunity to learn from 10,000 people. There's your 10,000 hours right there, just because of the people.
Massively. And there's this infatuation with going through uni and going into pro sport or going into team sports and things like that. And still to this day, one of the best things that I did, and the way that I sort of started was a bit fluky and sort of all over the place, but we did our Cert 3 and 4 in school in grade 11 and 12. So that's how I got my personal training certification as such. First year out of school, just sort of dicked around, surfed, played footy, didn't really think too much about it, did a bit of bar work. And again, bar work's in that service industry. You're talking to all walks of life, some more regular than others. But then I thought, I genuinely enjoy this passion of working in, or not working, but being involved in the gym space. So put out a few resumes, got offered 2 jobs at the time. I thought, geez, how good is this? In reality, as we know, personal training jobs come and go very quickly.
Yeah.
So I took one of them. So interesting enough, there was 2 options here. And I think this could be a good insight to someone maybe looking to get started. Is the first one was a very small new gym. It was still a 24/7 commercial facility, but it was smaller. If you look at the square meters, it might be like 500 square meters or something like that. There was only one other personal trainer there at the time. So if you look at the member base, I don't know how many members they would have had, but let's just say, 200-ish. One other personal trainer, me, pretty good odds to have a crack there, versus the big commercial facility that I think had 20-something personal trainers, all the bells and whistles, 3,000 members, all this sort of stuff. And not really knowingly going with my gut told me to go with the small facility or the small gym. And that's what I did. And very lucky I did, because I don't know whether if I had have gone to that big one, would I have still stuck that out as long as I did. I was there for, I think, nearly 3 or 4 years, which was fantastic, because everything you mentioned there before around communicating with all different walks of life, there was, I think at some stage I was coaching kids, mums that have been divorced. I couldn't talk to them about divorce. I was, 18, 19. I barely had a girlfriend at that point in time, but, elderly population, people with disabilities, all these sorts of different walks of life that you can't have the same conversation with the grandma as you do with the divorcee, as you do with the 12-year-old girl. They're all completely different. So you really have to become a chameleon of conversation and be able to mold or blend yourself to fit into any environment, any room. And that's probably one of the greatest assets any young coach or any coach really can have, is be able to walk into a room, read it to some level, and then be able to contribute and communicate in a way that the people in that room are going to understand. There's no point in talking in technical jargon when 95% of the room just look at you as if what the fuck is this bloke on about? And that's where I think we often get caught up, is we want to be these people that are highly educated and can speak this sophisticated language and all these sorts of things, which, yeah, you definitely do. Do not get me wrong. That's very important. But when you pull that card out, probably few and far in between. Being a good person, being able to have those normal people conversations and just talk about normal things. What's on, what's the latest Netflix show? What's going around in sport? Because especially athletes really could not give 2 shits about any of that. They want to know that you can have a chat to them. If they've got a problem, they can come and talk to you about it, and that you genuinely care about what their training or their performance is going, or where they need some improvement or some help. That's it. If you nail those 3 things, you're going to be, pretty well off.
So soft skills, right? Like, we work in a soft skill industry. Like I said, we need to know what we're talking about. Great. We need to know how the human body moves, and probably don't beat the shit out of the grandma, and probably don't just like tell the the kid to just walk on an incline treadmill and be like, everything's going to be fine, mate. You're going to go to the NFL, and it's probably not going to happen. But we work in a soft skill industry. It's how we communicate with one another, and the vibe that we put out. We're the captain of that bloody ship. And if we expect
Massive,
everybody to row, we've got to put out that vibe.
massively. And I think when you move up, well, probably again, another nice segue is when back home, I was always working by myself or had, one or two guys or girls working with me. So a bit of like a solopreneur as such.
Mm.
And in that space there, you were a very different coach slash, manager as such versus when you're in a team of 14 versus when you're in a team of 20 versus when now you've got senior management, middle management, and, your staff. So those skills that you call them soft skills, you can really call them whatever you want, really. They're just skills, people skills, really.
People skills, yeah.
And they have to change and adapt over time as well. You can't hang your hat on what got you somewhere is going to continue to be successful. And the other thing about people is people are people, right? Every single person is different. So the way whether you give feedback, and this could be just a simple thing as cueing. We can look at, you don't ever cue two athletes the same way. When I'm providing feedback to, whether it be staff or even when I'm receiving feedback myself, I don't receive feedback the same way that you will. So we have to be able to understand that and then be able to mold our approach to that. And, when you're trying to hit a square peg into a round hole, ultimately you're the only one that's going to get frustrated or get made to look silly. And the outcome's not going to be what you're desired or what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, taking those lessons from those earlier days, adapting them over time into where you are. And don't get me wrong, I think the most important thing to remember about that side of the people skills, it's always evolving. It's always changing. And that's kind of what makes it fun. And I genuinely enjoyed that side of coaching and being involved in this space is, as much as I'm learning, I'm still evolving myself. And if I look back a year ago or 6 months ago and I'm still the exact same person, not only as a coach, but as a person, then I probably haven't done my self-service to continue to grow and change. And I think that's very, very important.
I agree, man. I think we fucked up if we're not evolving. The only constant in life is change at the end of the day. And I think it's also important that we move geographical places or we seek out different demographic of people. We go work in an old people's home, try and get them moving. We go work with the disability community and we learn a little bit of sign language, or we will work with people who have cerebral palsy or visually impaired. So we're like, okay, cool. My communication style now has to drastically change, and then you work with kids, and then you work with the more well-off kids, and then you work with the absolute dive of a place. And you're like, again, chameleon. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful point that you touched on, man. Is you've got to be that person. They've got to respect you at the end of the day. Because if they don't respect you, they're not going to do what you want them to do. And what you want them to do is to help them, and if they don't respect you, inevitably you can't help them.
Massively. And the funny thing is every sort of scenario you listed off there, I've done. And I know that a lot of people may not have done that, or they may look at that as a waste of time, but along that journey, you might find that working with the elderly population actually is what gets you out of bed in the morning and who you really want to work with. And that's another thing that people don't get to experience if they have that linear approach to working, with professional athletes, is they miss out on all these opportunities to figure out that could have been the group or the people that I really am passionate about, get me out of bed and drive me to be able to want to work with. So yeah, you got to be willing to experience different things. And that sort of, piggybacks beautifully off the networks. Yeah. They give you the opportunities to be able to experience those things. You wanting to actually have a crack and go, yep, I'm going to do it. And then thirdly, sort of being open to going, okay, well, that's not typically my kettle of fish, but let's have a crack at it anyway. Those sort of three things, which sort of comes full 360 on sort of what we chatted about there.
Yeah, I think so, man. I always say if you can coach kids, you can coach anyone, mainly because the way you coach kids is the same as the way you coach adults. The only difference is you probably use the word fuck a little too many more times when you coach the adults than the kids, right? And
100%.
there's so much crossover. There's so much crossover, and I think there's always something to learn. And again, I just go back to this: a privilege. It's a privilege of the way to pay your bills. Is for someone to walk through a shutter door and look you in the eye and give you their mental and physical health in a ball and put it in your hand and be like, you now have this for the next 60 minutes, 90 minutes. They're like, are you sure? Like, I'm just a kid from the west side of Manchester, just like you're the kid from wherever. It's like, yeah, I trust you. You're like, fuck, okay, let's go to work. And that is such a amazing, fantastic dynamic. And I think if more coaches understood the power in their hands, I think we can end up leading people, sometimes away from where they grew up, sometimes towards what they want to go to, or even like, hey, man, you might even just be a D2 athlete, which is still a phenomenal friggin' athlete. Playing D2 ball, whatever ball that is a phenomenal athlete, but they're going to be an unbelievable lawyer. They're going to be an unbelievable primary school teacher. And now they're going to be an unbelievable human being because of the work that you're doing.
Mate, for sure. And I think the times we forget that is when it becomes not necessarily a business, but when you are maybe seeing 10 clients a day or 12 clients a day, and you're there from 6 till 6, or 6 with a 2-hour gap till 8 o'clock at night. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, you want to be the best hour in that person's day, no matter what, whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. You want to have the same energy from the moment you walked in, from the moment when you walk out. Because for them, it's whether it's the first minute at 6 a.m. or the first minute at 12 p.m. or the first minute at 3 p.m., it's still their first minute. It's not your first minute, but it's their first minute of the day with you. And if you can bring that energy and that experience, and there's been so many times where I've literally walked around the corner, gone, oh, fuck, another session. Quick sip of water, walk back, and you just put on your mask and you push through that no matter what. And Lockie has a great saying here is, try to leave your not necessarily your outside life, but leave your personal baggage at the door. When you walk in, when you walk out, you can grab that and take it home with you. And it is very important to respect that. And as you said, it is for them to want to invest in spending time with you, for you to then invest your skills into someone else is pretty special. And that's the thing about the service-based industry, right? People, service, they go hand in hand. And it is a lucky place to be in. And if you've done it long enough, you can see kids or adults even, they've been in grades 8 and 9 in school. You get invited to their graduation, you're now seeing them in uni, all these different things that, whilst they might've been a fantastic athlete, as you mentioned, they've now gone through these important stages of their life, and you're there along the way, and you get to look back on them. And, sometimes on your phone, a memory will pop up, or you see a video of them when they were 5 years ago, and you send it to them and say, oh, how good's this? Look how far you've came. Hope you're doing well. All these touch points you have on someone's life is pretty special. And not all other industries get a chance to do that. There is plenty, but there's not a lot that can do that on that level. And that's where, if you're at a one-on-one situation, the personal touch you have is far greater than, in a group environment. But again, if you're being exposed to enough and you know how to, work the room as such, you can have 30 touch points in that 1 hour session with 30 different athletes. So as you said, it's a privilege, and not a lot of people get to do it.
Here's a question then. You mentioned about putting the baggage at the door, which I believe, when the session starts, I think we're the bottom. We go all the way to the bottom, and it's about them. It's not about you, it's about them. It's a service-based industry. Our job is to serve, right? We are the bottom of the pile. And then when that session's over and we leave work, we have to then be basically number one priority, because if we're not, we can't do our job. We're no longer pouring back into that cup, and then we're going to have nothing else to pour into theirs, right? So my question would be, how do you navigate and manage that all or nothing mindset, which we have to adopt in coaching? And how do you, I guess, look after yourself so you don't burn the fuck out?
You want the short answer or the long answer?
Mate, you can talk to me
I'll give you the
however you
short
want.
answer first. It's fucking hard.
Hell
It
yeah.
really is. And if anyone tells you that it's not, they're an absolute fibber and they're lying straight to your face, because it really is. Um, the again, this is the luckiness, or whatever you want to call it, of having a really strong network. Is I've seen what people have gone through, asked them as well, which helps. But the biggest thing is that you can't just be a coach or just be a personal trainer or just be that. You've got to have different facets in your life. The moment that it consumes every minute of your day, you've taken that turn far too aggressive. You've got to have other things that you can invest your time and energy into. Um, Without that, it can consume you, and it will consume you. Because as you know, and anyone knows that is a coach, they typically are long days, and your friends, that work corporate or anything like that, have already been to work, come home, and maybe had a couple of glasses of wine and whatever else, and you're still at work. And they might be on double or triple what you're earning. So passion will only get you so far. Passion will be what will get you into the industry. Passion will be the thing that will keep you in the industry, but you have to find ways to be able to look after yourself. Now, that's one part of it, is, having multiple facets to what you do. But secondly, and people may not like this approach, but at the end of the day, you have to treat yourself like a business. So your time becomes your greatest asset, especially if you're in a one-on-one service-based industry. So how can you preserve your time and make it more valuable? So instead of having 12 clients a day, I can maybe have 6. Or instead of having 5 sessions, I can have 4. And there's a misconception that because I might do semi-private or I might charge a premium, that my service isn't as good as someone else who's in the corner, doing 15 sessions a day for X amount of dollars, when you might be charging double, which is definitely not the case. If you don't turn up to work, you don't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of other people that, if you're, working for yourself as a personal trainer or whatever else, there's not a lot of other industries that if you don't turn up to work, you don't get paid. There's not many. So you really do have to start to understand that what you do is a business, and you can't pay your bills on passion. It'd be bloody great if you could, but you simply can't. You can't go to Woolworths and say, I'll buy my groceries today with $4 worth of passion. No, you gotta have money. So yeah, being able to multiple assets or multiple facets of your life. B, actually treat what you do like a business. You have to understand basic business fundamentals to actually operate at that level. Because once you understand it, those stresses can start to alleviate, because it might be financial stress that you're actually leaving at the door. And what you're currently doing every day is building your financial assets up. And if they're not in the right place, then eventually you're going to start resenting it, or you're going to start well, fuck, I love working with Jane, but I can't eat tonight, or I can't, go through this. And I think that not every single, but a lot of coaches would have gone through that phase of, people call it, like the eating shit phase. You can do that for a small period of time, but you can't eat shit forever. It's okay to eat shit in the early days, because that's essentially, your apprenticeship or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you can't continue to eat shit long term.
Yeah, I think we need to, as an industry, come together a little bit more, because it seems like a rite of passage. And don't get me wrong, I think you got to earn your stripes. Don't get me wrong, I think you got to experience a lot of different stuff and be like, actually, that was hard, man. Working 12, 14, 16, 18 hour a day was shit. And, we're preaching health and well-being, health and fitness, performance, and we're unhealthy, unfit, and our performance is definitely shit. So it's like, well, I think we need to come together and be like, how do we create internships or nurture or scholarships or something where there's a ladder, and I do think the way to go about that is to kind of bridge it into the business realm, and unfortunately, if you get into fitness, for a lot of folk, it's because they're not good at anything else, and they can just kind of throw a ball or kick one or run after it or lift weights. And you're like, all right, sound. But we also need to mentor these 17, 18, 19, 21-year-olds, right? These young men and women that barely have a pube on the nuts, you know, and are just getting into the industry because they're good. They're good with people. Don't get me wrong, and they're good in fitness, and they can be phenomenal. But we kind of just throw them to the sharks. You know, going back to your option A or option B, you went to the smaller gym. You could have gone for that bigger one. We just throw them into that shark and then be like, oh, yeah, you also owe me money every week to work. Like, you've got to rent this space. And I was like, what? I don't fucking understand that. It's like, yeah. So it's your role is to go get money, but before that, you pay me money. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. That makes zero frigging sense. Oh yeah, I'm gonna turn up to Lloyd's Bank or Westpac, and for my weekly work, and they're gonna be like, oh, you owe me $200 to start work. You're off at a minus. You know, it makes fucking zero sense. So I think we need to, you know, learn from that, learn from our past mistakes, whether it's us, whether it's somebody else in the industry, and be like, okay, cool. We need to collaborate and nurture young coaches rather than just be like, yo, if you make it past the 3 year mark on passion alone and eating ramen noodles, you're going to be all right. It's like, no, I think we break a lot of what could be phenomenal coaches.
Couldn't agree more. And I think if you look at it as a whole, that can be very overwhelming because what's one person going to do? But if you look at it from okay, what can I directly influence? I can directly influence. I can't influence the past, but I can influence the future. Now I can influence just the people around me. Now, is that going to make an overall difference? I don't know. Maybe. But if I do it, you do it, someone else does it, someone else does it, someone else does it, all of a sudden that can become the norm. Now that's far easier than done, of course, from a practicality standpoint, but you just need people that are willing to, guide and direct the younger people coming through and show them this is going to be the reality of it. But if you stick it out, good things can happen. And, find people that are, have been to where you want to go or have done the things that you want to do. But essentially at the end of the day, if there wants to be change, it has to start with you, or it has to start with I, or, whoever else. Because we are the people, currently there now, working versus when we were, that younger coach, there was other people there. So the only way to change it is for it to change at that, ground level as such.
But how many raindrops does it take to make a ripple?
Exactly.
But how many raindrops does it take to make a tsunami? A fucking lot. It's like, but stop worrying about the tsunami. We just need a ripple. So we've all got the accountability, right? Like, I got the accountability for myself, and then maybe the two, maybe the one, or maybe just myself, or the people around me, and you got the same. And then eventually we're going to be in a bit of a better and bigger place.
Exactly. Could have said it better.
But I got 3 quick fire, maybe not quick fire questions.
Hit me.
We'll see where it goes. What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Yeah. Okay. So this one probably just came from my granddad. And he just loved to just do things, make things. And he just goes, honestly, mate, whatever you want to do, just have a crack at it. Doesn't matter if you're good at it, you had a crack. You're bad at it, you had a crack. So that mentality of just having a crack, seeing where it goes. There's been lots of things that I've tried that have failed, plenty. There's also been plenty that have come off. So if you don't try something, you won't know. And I do like to come in it from a bit of a, sort of, I mentioned at the start, a bit of a naive position, because that way you get to see things clear. You may see things that other people don't see, and that's where the opportunity can potentially lie.
Give it a nudge, mate.
Exactly. Give it a nudge. Have a crack.
Love that, man. What's the worst piece of life advice you ever received? It's probably the inverse. It was, at school, it was, you must do, or you must have your life figured out. Fuck that. I don't know one that knows their life figured out. I know people that are 50, 60 that still have no idea what their life is figured out. So to put that pressure on kids, I hate that sort of approach. You should have things figured out, or you should know exactly what you want to do. And that kind of piggybacks off my granddad's advice of just have a crack. They're the complete opposites. So that's probably why it's the worst. You're 18% done. You're supposed to know what the steps are to take you all the way home. Like, are you absolutely mental? You're 18% done of your life, and you're leaving
Yeah.
school. You're like, you're not gonna know shit, mate.
Yeah. If that even, you
If
haven't
that, yeah.
experienced anything. So couldn't agree more.
All right, last question. 3 words you tell your younger self.
Believe in yourself.
Mm.
Um, just believe in yourself. You never know where it'll take you. At the end of the day, you'll have friends that come and go. You'll have your family around, but at the end of the day, it's when it's a cold morning at 4 a.m. Or 10 p.m. at night when you're rolling home from work, it is just you. So you just have to believe in yourself that what you're doing, is the right thing for now. Don't judge yourself on it, and just believe in yourself and see where it takes you.
Love that, man. You did good work, man. You got a good vibe. A lot of people getting helped, and yeah, can't come. I can't wait to come over and throw some tin down, work out, grab a coffee, and help some folk.
Mate, absolutely love it. No, appreciate that. And like I said to you at the start, mate, 400 episodes. That's very hard to do. I think we're like 140, 150 nearly. And that's, we've gone internal to be able to subsidize some of that, booking meetings, time zones, all that sort of stuff. So for you to be able to get to 400, mate, credit to you because that's bloody hard.
I just gave it a nudge, mate.
That's all you can do.
It's just a northerner talking a bit of shit. That's all. That's all it
No,
is,
I love it. No,
brother.
thank you so much. Appreciate you giving the opportunity just to have a chat. And hopefully there might be one thing in there that someone could take away and think that just have a sit down and think that that could be applied to me or something like that. I know it wasn't the X's and O's. It was more just a bit of a general philosophy and overarching things. But no, I appreciate the time, mate.
Nah, dude, I'm sure there's plenty, mate. I appreciate it personally, wholeheartedly. So thank you, brother.
Unreal, mate. Have a great day.
We'll speak soon, lad. Bye, everybody.